Hey again, it's Father Dave continuing our discussion about the problem of evil and why God would allow suffering, why He would create an imperfect world. Here we are discussing the second of the five possible explanations here. The second one is the opportunity for natural virtues. And again, I'm leaning on the research of Father Robert Spitzer here. And I just got back from a bike ride here, so I realized that my retention is really low. So if I don't do this recording right now, by tomorrow I won't remember anything that I read earlier today. So here we go. Natural virtues. So the whole concept of courage and the concept of self-discipline, which is also called temperance, two of the cardinal virtues, right? If we lived in a perfect world, there was no pain, no difficulty, these virtues would be unnecessary, and in fact they would be impossible, right? There wouldn't be any meaningful concept of courage if we were never threatened or never in danger. There would never be any concept of temperance if there was never any risk of us, going overboard in our eating or sleeping or whatever it is, okay? So these two things, because suffering is possible, because evil is possible, these become a possibility for us, and in fact a necessity in order for us to define who we are, right? It's our acts of courage, it's our acts of self-discipline that end up defining who we are as human beings. Hopefully that will make a little bit more sense as we go on here, why that's true. So what is courage? Well, courage is the pursuit of a virtue even over and against the possibility of pain, right? So I want to accomplish something, but in order to get there, I have to go through something that might be bothersome, painful, right? I need the virtue of courage to pursue that good, to pursue that virtue, right? So the question here really is, would you rather live in a safe world where there's no possibility of suffering and you're just a bystander watching it all kind of happen? You're not really in any real sense engaged. Or would you rather live in a world that has danger, where you are able to enter into the fray and prove who you are, prove your value, prove your worth? It seems that for most of us, that would be the desirable option, right? We want to have a sense of identity, of who we are, of having proven who we are. And for that to be meaningful, for that to be possible, the possibility of suffering must be there. Once we start seeing this in light of eternity, that makes it all the greater that, St. Paul says, the sufferings of this time are as nothing compared to the glory to be revealed for us. Right? And in fact, what we're willing to suffer now is like a badge of honor for us in the future and for all eternity. Such it was that Jesus, who was willing to suffer out of love for us, and when he comes back to his apostles, he shows them his wounds, right? He carries these wounds that he had to have the courage to confront the suffering of the crucifixion in order to prove his love. And now they're his badges of honor. They're the proof of his love. All right, so that's courage. Self-discipline. All right, another aspect here is that self-discipline would be defined as the pursuit of virtue through avoidance of destructive indulgence in pleasure and passion. Right? Where courage, we're working through pain to get there. Self-discipline is we're avoiding being, overly indulgent. We're avoiding, just being focused on all of our kind of first level needs and desires, right? So the question is, well, why wouldn't God just put an internal regulator in us so that we would always stop before we eat too much or drink too much or whatever, right? Why not, just boom, there's no more hunger. I'm not going to reach into that bag of chips for one more because I've had enough. Why wouldn't he do that? Well, it seems that God wants us to be able to define ourselves, not just by these courageous acts in the face of danger, but also just by virtue of our daily, small, ordinary, everyday choices. Okay, that's what self-discipline is. We're defining ourselves. We are orienting ourselves towards a higher good by saying no, by avoiding overindulgence in these other things. So, without the possibility of suffering, neither courage nor self-discipline are possible. And these are two things that we really use to define who we are. I think the main point here is that if it weren't for the possibility of suffering, there'd be no sense in which our virtue would really be our own, right? What's good in us would just be something that doesn't really belong to us. We haven't worked for it, we haven't earned it. But by having to be courageous, by having to be self-disciplined, the virtues that we develop, they are truly our own. Right? And this is part of kind of the beauty of the Catholic distinction here. We don't believe in utter depravity, that we have lost entirely our dignity as human beings and our capacity to do good. Right? Christ said, "Without me you can do nothing." But that doesn't mean that when we are with him, we don't have virtue of our own, right? Or the virtue of our own, we can only have it when we're united with him, right? So we are given by God this capacity to define ourselves, and we especially define ourselves by that which we accomplish through the difficulties, having courage to fight through pain and opposition, and having self-discipline to say no to so many things to accomplish a goal. So really, when it comes down to it, if you were interviewing two people and they both had the same exact qualifications, but one person had gotten where they were just all smooth sailing, it all came easily, and the other person had to really fight for it, had to overcome adversities and so on, which candidate would you choose? Seems clear, like we would admire the virtue that this second candidate has earned, right? If you had to choose someone for your basketball team, they're both exactly the same skill set and so on. One, it just all, they just comes easily, and the other, they really worked for it. They overcame all these opposition and so on, right? That's the one. They've got the special sauce, right? They've got something in them that they've defined who they were. They fought for it. That's the one that we're going to choose. So that opportunity for natural virtue is only possible if suffering is possible, if evil is possible in the world. So another proposition of why it might be that God allowed evil. All right, thanks for your patience and for listening to me. God bless you.